Hey friends, welcome back to another video. In the last video I talked about my personal Christmas wish list. Tokina Canon Sigma TG5 300D, the 120D, Tiffon, Polar Pro, Black Mist Pro, the Low Pro Whistler BP450. In this video I'll be talking about beginner filmmaking gear that I recommend for you. Things that I would buy if I were to start all over again. There's many options out there, so you should choose what is best for you. So everything that I talk about in this video will be linked in the description below. Now these are affiliated links, so if you do decide to purchase anything through these links, it would greatly help out the channel, which is always appreciated. So I've been thinking about this video for a while, and I was thinking about if I were to start again, what equipment would I buy first? What's the most important things that I would need to start out on my filmmaking journey? So let's get started. Here's my list for beginner filmmaking gear that I recommend for you. Now, the first thing on the list is obviously you're gonna need a camera. There are a lot of great cameras on the market, but if I were to choose one for a beginner, it would be the GH5, the Panasonic Lumix GH5. Why would I choose this camera? Well, first of all, price. You can get yourself a decent secondhand GH5 for around the $1,000 mark. Second is the image quality is really good. The in-body stabilization on the GH5 is very good, which will save you some money when it comes to buying a gimbal. Now you can still get a gimbal later on, and there is a time and place for a gimbal, but to start off with, there are good techniques you can use with the in-body stabilization to get some really nice smooth shots. Of course, this is just my opinion. You can check out the market, check out some other videos to see which camera would suit you best. Alright, so the second thing on the list is a decent lens. Now I would recommend the Sigma 17-50mm as your start out lens because it's really cheap and the image quality is quite good for the price. I think you can pick up one of these second hand for around $250. Now because the GH5 is a micro four thirds lens, you will have to get an adapter, and that's where I recommend something like the Metabones SpeedBooster. The Metabones SpeedBooster is rather expensive. There are other options out there that are cheaper. The quality of the Metabones SpeedBooster is quite high, and you will be able to adapt all the Canon EF mounts if you decide to go down that path. We have our camera, we have our lens, we have our adapter. Now the next thing on the list that I recommend is a microphone. Now when you're first starting out in filmmaking, you don't need all the best gear. It's ideal to buy what you can afford, and if you're on a budget, there's some great options. Now you can get the Rode Micro for very cheap. You just stick it on your camera, plug it in, and you're right to go. It's a great little microphone for a very good price. The second thing is, if you want to get yourself a shotgun mics can be rather expensive. Now there is the option of getting something like the Tascam DR10SG. This is a shotgun mic that is attached to this recorder. Now you put a battery in there, you put your SD card in, and you can mount this on your camera. You can mount this on a tripod, on a boom pole, whatever it is you need. So this is a good beginner entry-level microphone. Lapel mics are great and important for if you're doing interviews or if you're shooting weddings, for example. That's where I recommend something like the Tascam DR10L. It's a lapel mic, so you just put it into the client's pocket or the groom's pocket, and you hit record and it's locked, it's safe, it's good to go. It records on two different tracks, so if one track clips, you have a backup track for safety, which is really good. The sound quality from this little thing is fantastic, so I highly recommend these. Decent price, around the $200 mark. Alright, so we got our camera, our lens, our adapter, our microphones. What else do we need? Batteries. Alright, batteries. Get yourself a bunch of batteries. You can get aftermarket batteries. They're much cheaper than the brand name batteries. They don't last quite as long, but you can get a bunch of them for very cheap. I would recommend getting up to several batteries, especially if you're going out for long periods of time, traveling, adventure filmmaking, etc. Alright, so the next thing you're gonna need is a decent ND filter, a variable ND filter that you can change just by spinning like this. Now this is you're gonna need this for outside when it's very sunny. You can drop it, kind of like sunglasses for your lens. You can drop it down so it darkens the image, and that way you can shoot in much more brighter areas. Depending on which lens you buy, you will have to get what we call step-up rings. So I recommend getting the biggest size you can, maybe an 82mm, and then buying some step-up rings, which allows you to attach this to the front of your lens. So the next thing you're going to need is SD cards and an SD card case. Now I really recommend this Pelican hard case. It's waterproof, although I wouldn't recommend putting it into water because why would you do that? You can hold a bunch of memory cards in here. It's very high quality and you don't have to be worried about breaking or damaging your cards. So I really recommend you get something like the SanDisk SD cards, either 95 or 170 megabytes per second. I'd recommend getting either 64GB or 128GB, depending on your budget and how much you're going to think you're filming. There are benefits to the bigger cards, but there's also benefits to the smaller cards. For example, if you get the smaller card, then you are more likely to, when the card fills up, you're going to take it and put that footage onto your hard drive. You know, you keep your footage safe. Sometimes with the bigger cards, you can forget that you have footage on there and you might accidentally wipe it. Well, that brings me on to the next thing, which is a external hard drive. You want one of these for backing up your footage. There's a whole bunch of different ones you can get. Now I recommend different hard drives for different scenarios. For example, you might use spinning disk hard drives, which are much cheaper and larger capacity for just storing your media, as well you might get a high-speed SSD for doing your editing. Alright, so the next thing on the list that you want to get as a beginner filmmaker is some cheap lights. I recommend something like this little aperture AL-M9 light. It's really cool. USB charge, and you just turn it on like this. It's quite bright. You can put some filters on the front to change the color. Another brand that you can get off Amazon is Newer. Now they have a ton of different lights, ranging from very cheap to a little bit more expensive. These are really budget friendly lights. This one here I got is an LED panel. Let's turn it on. So it can go up from 0 to all the way to 100. And you can go from 5600 Kelvin all the way down to 3200 Kelvin. So you got, oops, let's turn it back on. So you can change from daylight temperature all the way down to indoor tungsten light temperature. Alright guys, so the last thing on my list is a tripod. I recommend getting two different types of tripods if you can. A standard tripod with the 3 legs that you can use to set up for interviews or other types of filming. But the other one that I really recommend is the Manfrotto monopod. Now this thing is awesome. You can get some pretty amazing shots with this. You can use it as like a crane or put it over ledges. You can get some really nice dolly shots with this. I highly recommend this to add to your filmmaking kit. Alright guys, that's it from me. That's my recommendations for basic filmmaking gear. Now if you're just starting out and you want some more information, hit me up and I'll be happy to help as I can. So if this video helped you in any way, don't forget to like, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so that you will be updated anytime that I release a new video. Until next time, see you later.